Hey y'all, so I wanted to share this prayer that I did with my husband yesterday. And y'all know we all go through times in our marriage where it's just tough. And I think the way you respond is very important during these times. Like, communication is really important in marriage. Or, we could choose to just have attitude and, respond in the same way. After being together for so long, that means that there's no growth. That means that there's an issue. That means that, there's something going on that needs to be addressed if you're continuing to respond in your marriage in the same way, like the way you handle conflict, the way that you just address anything. The communication is like the number one thing that shows how well you're doing in marriage. So I just wanted to share the prayer that I was led to pray yesterday. I felt the need to pray yesterday. So I called my husband while he was on his way to work and, prayed with him. And when I began to pray, I realized that my prayer began to go in the way of perspective, in the way we see. And even now, as I'm saying this, there's no coincidence, hearing about 2020, the 2020 vision and all of this stuff. Like, God has really been dealing with me about changing my perspective and seeing things differently. So that even means with myself, looking at myself differently, not seeing myself the same way, because we can't grow if we can't see ourselves first how God sees us. So that means having a relationship with Him. That means knowing our identity in Him. That means knowing the Word. That means knowing what God thinks of us and why He created us, and knowing that we have purpose and everything like that. So it starts there first, and then we have to see ourselves differently. We can't continue to see ourselves as being that same person from, even last month, last year, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So of course in marriage, you can't be the same person or respond the same way you would if you can't respond the same way that you would when you were with your husband 5 years ago, or when you met your husband. My husband and I met almost 20 years ago. We were in high school, like we were freshmen. So imagine if we respond to each other from that mindset, that like, what fruit is that going to produce, right? So the prayer went into like God just, changing our perspective, not only of each other, but of ourselves. And, God searching our hearts and beginning to change the way we think, so we can see each other in the eyes of Christ, and that we can see each other as God sees our spouses, right? Because we know that God created us for something so great, and He created us to love and be in relationship and be in communion with each other. So why, the conflict all of the time in our marriage? Why are we still fighting and arguing over the same things? Why is this one issue not changing? Why aren't we, tackling an issue and conquering and having victory in our marriage? So I just want to encourage y'all to change the way you pray, first of all, because prayer is, what allows us to communicate with God. And I remember I used to pray the same basic prayers, like, saying the same things. Lord, heal my marriage. Lord, do this, do that. But then I felt the urgency to change the way that I pray. And I began to talk to God like I'm talking to my homeboy. Like, we all have a relationship with God. And the way that God created us, He is way bigger than us, but He's given us so much power and authority that we are to go to Him with our requests. We are to go and tell Him everything. So that means being really deep and open and honest with Him, and as if you're talking to your best friend, because y'all know we have that one best friend, girl, know everything. Or, the guys have their homeboys that they hang out with and they talk with. God is the same way. Like, we can go to God and tell Him things that we would never tell anybody else, but we can also go to God and know that He is the one first with the power and authority to change us in the way that we see. And so, Lord, search our hearts. Lord, search my hearts. Reveal to me how I've been treating my husband, how I've been seeing him, and help me to change that. God, and if it's a deeper thing, like a thing with myself, an individual thing, Lord, begin to change me, transform my heart, renew my mind, so that I can see myself in you. And then as I see myself and become whole in you, God, and walk in purpose and be in alignment with you, then I know that my perspective towards my husband will change. Because if I don't see myself the same, then I know that I can begin to see my husband differently as well, because you love us so much. Simple as that. So I just wanted to share that because I feel like that was a really deep prayer. And it wasn't long. I wasn't crying out, oh God, do this. Like, it was a genuine, authentic prayer, because genuinely, when you want change in your life, your prayers will begin to align with your heart that you have. And if you genuinely want change, God knows, because when you go to him, you'll pray for something. But if your actions don't say otherwise, it's not going to change. Because when we send those requests to God, we also have to take action and ask God to give us discernment and wisdom and guidance, and bring the people in our lives that we need. Lord, lead us to the tools and the resources that we need to be able to make this change. So don't just go send that prayer up and don't begin to move. Begin to change the way you talk to your spouse. Begin to implement things that y'all have never done. It may be uncomfortable at first, because we know change is not comfortable, but do the things. Get the pride out of the way. Get the stubbornness out of the way. And if you don't date, go on a date. If you don't talk about money like you should be, start talking about money. It's going to be difficult in the beginning, I'm telling y'all. But you have to overcome that feeling, because it doesn't matter what we change in our lives, it's going to feel uncomfortable, because our minds, our brains, subconsciously, we do the same things. It's habit. It's something that has become so normal. So when you're trying to recondition your mind, asking God to renew your mind and your heart, it starts in our heart first, and then renew our minds. You got to push through that phase of it. You're going to have to push through that phase of it and change, work at it until it becomes a habit. And now that's what's normal in your mind. Oh, it's normal for me and my husband to go on a date. We don't miss it. Oh, it's normal for us to talk about money and have an understanding. Good. Because as you change, you're going to have trial and error. You're going to try this, it may not work. That don't mean you quit and go back to being the same spouse. You keep trying different things until you find what works, but you also have to be going before God with all of it and constantly giving God your marriage every single day. So y'all, that's my marriage tip. I don't know. I just felt like I should share that with y'all, but that's my marriage tip, because I've been married for, y'all, I'm not even going to say how many years, because every time I have to look over at my husband and be like, how long we been married? But, 9 years, but we've been together a long time. We've been together for 18 years, I think. So we've been together since we were pretty much children. Like, we were 14 and 15 years old, and we've had to grow together, and it wasn't easy. But it took for, one of us to begin to say, okay, I'm tired of being the same. I'm tired of living life the same. I'm tired of us being the same. Our fruit, we're not producing any fruit. We're not producing any greatness. We're just constantly in this cycle of this, that. Somebody gonna have to make the move, right? So that's where the prayer came in at. And, sometimes it takes for you to change first before your spouse will begin to see, okay, she trying to change. She trying to do this. Or he really doing this. Or, oh, he's sticking to this. Okay. And then they'll come on board. But you have to remain consistent. You have to keep the end in mind. You have to continue to look forward. And don't give up because, oh, he didn't join you this time. Or he wasn't as excited as you were. Or she wasn't as excited as you were. So I ain't gonna do it. Bump that. I'm not finna make myself look stupid. Blah, blah. Y'all know how we can get in marriage. Y'all know. So I just wanted to share that with y'all. We got to make marriages thrive, y'all, especially in the times that we're in right now. Marriages need to thrive, and it's going to take teamwork. It's going to take doing the hard work. It's going to take digging deep. It's going to take planting our feet where nothing can come and move us and sway us, because y'all know how that is too. You be listening to them little outside voices and you think this is right, that is right. Girl, he didn't. Nah. You have to be mindful of who you allow into and who you listen to as well. So just be planted and don't move, because I mean, marriage is not meant to be glitter, cupcakes, rainbows. If I had to reference something, you know, it's work. And I believe that God has given us marriage to make us grow, because we can't be the same people. Like, He gonna put us in positions where we have to grow. So I'm done. That's my marriage tip of the day. Bye, y'all.